Steps to v6 dual stack deployment: get addresses, configure routers, configure DNS, configure public facing services, and configure clients. So if you don't have any public facing services and your network is simply clients, then you can skip that step. But the most important thing right now in terms of what we deploy is making our services work. And the services, as I said in the last slide, there's still little gaps to close to do v6 only clients, but the servers are ready to go. Most things are simply do a little reading, turn it on, observe that it works, and then keep an eye on it for a little while to make sure it's working. Configuring clients is only necessary to the extent that you have Windows XP in a dual stack environment, because you have to turn it on in XP, but the others will work out of the box in a dual stack environment. Steps to a single stack environment: get addresses, configure routers, configure DNS in v6 only, configure public facing web services, webmail, etc. Provide a gateway to v4. I've got an example of one to show you. And when I say gateway there, I mean a translator, not a gateway like a router. Something that translates between v4 and v6 packets. And then configure your clients. So you're going to have to choose between entering things manually, which if you have a small number of clients might be your solution, or to use DHCP6. As promised, this is a slide about IVI, which is an implementation of an internet draft, which was published by some people from CERNET and Tsinghua Daxue, which is Tsinghua University in Beijing. The license, I have said the license is unclear, but as it turns out, some of the source code has license specified in the README file, but the kernel patches don't have a license specified in their README file. It involves patches to an outdated kernel which does not compile under current libc and GCC. I actually got it to install and compile last week by installing a 3-year-old version of Linux, and I got it to work, or I got it to compile. I have not made it work. I haven't gotten that far yet. I have seen it work well, however, in February 2009 in joint techs in Texas A&M, and also in Indianapolis in July of 2009. IP address management is worth mentioning because Windows Vista and 7 v6 clients do not, most clients will use their MAC address, the Ethernet address on their Ethernet interface, to make up their IPv6 address. But somebody found that to be a privacy concern, so there's an RFC about privacy addressing, and Vista and 7 implement that privacy addressing. And it leaves us with issues about identifying machines by their IPv6 address, because it may change, and it may not be easy to determine from a v6 address which machine it was. MIB support for fetching neighbor discovery tables, which is the v6 version of what we refer to as ARP tables in the v4 world, are a moving target. So SNMP and MIB support are evolving. Cisco set up interim MIBs, which they used for a while, and now everybody is supposedly moving towards a unified MIB as specified by the IETF. Dirty tricks are okay. You can direct the DNS quad A record for an existing IPv4 service to a separate device. So you have a service running on a machine that for whatever reason you cannot set up with IPv6. It's on a network that doesn't support it. It's too big and complicated, and you don't want to mess it up. It's important, mission critical. You can set up an Apache server with the mod proxy to make it look like the content of that's on the v4 machine. The existing machine is actually coming from a v6 address, which is on a separate machine. This is greatly simplified if the content has an alternate name, and Some scenarios and services can simply use a different host. For instance, I point out that nothing says the interface or device that offers services via IPv6 is required to be the same as the one that offers those services over IPv4. So if you've got issues about presenting a host on a service on IP version 4, you can always set up another box, share the content as a disk share, NFS or Windows file sharing or etc., and then run a web server that looks at that shared copy of the content. You're allowed to use innovative solutions, and these innovative solutions, of course, will reach a point where it's no longer profitable to continue them, hopefully, but anything to get it going is probably allowed. So you go out and you listen to IPv6 advocacy speeches and things about the address running out, and the RIR is running out of v4 addresses, and the coming crisis, and the readiness of IPv6 and the necessity to move to IPv6, and you get all fired up, and then you go back to work, and the other people at your office have never heard this. So what's really important is spreading the word. You got to go back, and if they have not heard it, you need to tell them, and they may think you're crazy, but if once they have heard it, then they will hear it again, and they will hear it again. And you need to spread it to the people in your organization. And one way that you can do that is refer them to the Hawaii IPv6 Forum website, which is at ipv6hawaii.org. Thank you for listening, and please return for more webcasts in the future.